Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to BENISA'S CAFE and fortunately, FEMMES special edition for International Women's Month. We are here with a special guest today, and I am going to first pass the mic on to my co-host, Coach Betty. Betty, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again. Welcome back to our special Women's Edition month. We are happy to have you with us today because we have a special guest, this wonderful woman. She is from Togo, and her name is Miss Mary Hancock. Miss Mary, good evening. Welcome to our show.
Good evening, Miss Betty, and good evening, Benisa. Very nice to meet you both. And thank you for hosting today. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you as we are interviewing women around the world to bring different perspectives, different views to our audience. So please, before we get into the details of tonight, can you tell the audience who is Miss Marie? Tell us about you a little bit.
Oh, where do we begin? I have to say that I'm a very multifaceted woman. I think it comes from my culture pretty much, just the way my mother and my grandmother told me. I was raised by my grandmother for some years of my young life. And I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in Atlanta, and a real estate agent in the state of Iowa with Skogman Realty. I am also proud to be on a financial literacy campaign with Miss Benisa. So it's a pleasure to be here, getting to know her and getting to share my story.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And with you from Togo, which is West Africa, you also speak French, correct?
I do.
Absolutely.
Je parle français. Mon nom, en fait, c'est Marie.
Marie.
Et hablo español también.
I love it.
Bien, vous êtes une polyglotte, vous parlez plusieurs langues, c'est très bien.
Ah, Miss Betty, je ne savais pas que vous parliez français.
Bien sûr, je viens d'Haïti, je parle
Oh
français.
la la, Benisa, you hiding some things from me here.
No, I really wasn't.
It's always a joy and a pleasure to find out that somebody speaks your language. You know, I love speaking to all kind of people from all backgrounds. I didn't simply grow up in Togo, right? My parents were very much travelers, to put it lightly. We've stayed 1 year here, 10 years here, 5 years here. So, you know, I picked up languages, culture, styles of cooking, traditions all along the way. So now when I'm being asked where you're from, yes, I'm from Togo, but I'm very much from every other place as well. So
I love it.
yeah, we're very excited to get to know you both.
That's good to know.
So that takes us to the next question. So tell us something that we don't know about the country that you're from. So tell us a little bit about Togo, what we may not know.
A lot of people don't know that Togo was the hub of independence for the whole continent of Africa. It played a very instrumental part in a lot of countries establishing themselves as independent countries after the Second World War, 1945. We also fought on the side of Germany. I'm not proud of saying that. But we were one of the 2 countries in Africa that fought on the side of the Germans. Yeah, so that's something most people don't know.
Wow, that's
amazing.
I didn't know that second fact. I didn't know that you fought on the side of Germany. I didn't know that details. Thank you for sharing. Definitely.
Yeah. So my maternal grandfather actually spoke German. Most people of that generation all spoke German. My dad learned German, and the only reason he started speaking French was after the war, and the fact that we also lived in France.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good to know. But now tell us, Miss Mary, so how women are viewed in Togo in general? I know it's a West African country and women really are very active and they have a lot of things going on, but tell us how women as a whole are viewed in your country.
I think that really evolved through time. It did. In the beginning, we were also very much of a patriarchal society, right? Where the man, has things to say. The woman just, you cook, you take care of your man, and your voice is not that important. And then there was a revolution at some point. I can't remember what year, but it was brought on by some very powerful woman that we call Nana Benz. If you think about Nana Benz for Mercedes Benz, right?
Yes.
They were very commerce driven.
Mhm.
They were entrepreneurial. My mom was one of them, and they would basically travel the world, bring goods, because we had one of the first seaport in Africa, bring goods from Europe and all over China, everywhere you name it, and then they would redistribute that by terrestrial routes throughout the continent. So the Nana Benz, because of their power, I don't know how that translated and infiltrated the culture so much so that women are no longer seen as you stay home and being taken care of by a man. I mean, my grandma, for example, she wasn't a Nana Benz, but she's the one that owned land, acres and acres of land, even though she was in a polygamous. So there's those dichotomy in our country where she was in a polygamous relationship with my late grandfather. He had two wives. One wife that was chosen by his family, and my grandma, which he married later, that he had the right to choose. Right now, they were competing for his attention, the woman, but they were very much free in their own mind. They had gathering like dancing and there's something we call susu, that's like they collect money from their whatever industrious activities they did, and they rotated around in order to launch the next enterprise or the next idea they had, because they understood that it was power in group. So that's a little bit of the dichotomy that we have in my country, where women, you still have abuse, you still have things like the man is beating his wife and they think it's normal because you have to submit to your husband. Yet at the same time, you have this very powerful woman controlling commerce and enterprise, and it's not seen as unique. It's pretty much commonplace. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for
Very
sharing that.
interesting. Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah. I kind of lost track. I think I'm on. Okay. I think I got. I remember where I am. So tell me, how have things changed? I guess you touched on it a little bit since Nana Benz. But how have things changed in the last years? So like last 5-10 years, have things changed in Togo in comparison to
Yeah.
other countries, or?
It is really hard for me to say because I've been in the country for so long. It's been 5 years since I visited back home. It's
Oh.
time. Probably next year I'll be going. My sister is there. She absolutely love it. Have things changed? She is very liberated, but I feel like maybe that has more to do with our blend and the fact that we were traveled than with what happened traditionally with families that were born and raised and have never left the country.
Mhm.
So it's really hard for me to say. I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you.
No, that's perfectly fine and understandable, Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So now let's talk about more about the opportunities that are out there in Togo for women. Let's dive into some of the financials, if there are any doors that may be open for women to earn, anything that they're living by having a job, and
Mhm,
also
mhm.
about their education. Is there any equality for women as far as financial and educational aspects of their lives?
Educational aspect, there's definitely still inequalities. I mean, I still remember my mother telling me I couldn't go to school. I love school. I love knowledge, and I couldn't go to school because one, my parents had to prioritize the boys because they're supposed to be the one that would take care of the family. And there was limited resources. There were 9 children, 7 girls and 2 boys. And the boys got, the majority of the riches or the wealth, right? And they were the one that were sent to school. She wasn't sent to school. She had very limited formal education, but because of that, there are a lot of women that would launch into their own enterprises, whether they are selling like agricultural goods, or a lot of them like to have tailored clothing. My cousin, for example, that's what she does. Like, that's her passion. And she's built a very, very good living around tailoring, dressing women, going to events and all of that stuff. And that hasn't stopped her. My sister, because she has studied abroad, she is a quality analyst. But here are the challenges that she's facing as an educated woman and not working for herself, but working for somebody. It's always, oh, Elodie doesn't have time because she's a mother now. Oh, Elodie can't be promoted because she's a mother now. She can't, they expect you to be there every time. When the men are there, they expect you to go to the after parties or after work gathering. And that's where most of the promotion and the talks happen, pretty much like the United States, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then you now have to balance. Thank goodness that we do have, like maid and house help at pretty affordable prices. So if you're wealthy, you can afford to have somebody come in and help with your children while you dedicate your time like that to your work. But how many mothers want to do that and sacrifice time seeing their children grow? It's not really part of the culture. They want to be there at every step of the process until the children are grown. So
Right.
it's definitely a challenge. I hear her complain about it all the time. Like, why don't you come here? Oh, well, so it's a double-edged sword. She likes the slow pace of life. She likes the 35-hour work week, but she would definitely struggle with the fact that she is working in an environment that's primarily dominated by men in an oil and quality analysis industry. And it's a challenge, but she's hanging in there.
Wow. That's
Well,
really,
I hope she doesn't mind you telling her story. This is
I
good
don't think
air.
she minds. I don't think she minds. I'll be sending this video to her.
Oh, good, good. Awesome, awesome. Well, that brings us to our next question. So for you, you said you haven't been home in 5 years. So how long have you been in the United States?
Altogether, I've been here since December of 2005.
Okay. So how have your expectation changed since moving here?
Expectation as far as women rights is concerned.
Yes. And I guess what women are able to accomplish here?
Yeah, you know what? I've just never thought that anybody would be saying no to me. I have never thought about it. I was married before. I'm married again, to answer your question. And I think a point of contention being married with an African man was that, like, he wanted me to be, I was working 40 plus hours, 2 jobs to take care of the household, bringing the dough, bringing the money. And I was giving him his respect. I'm still the one cooking every meal, just like in this marriage. I make every single meal. I organize everything. I'm in charge of that. I'm in charge of the budget. I'm in charge of bringing it, you know? But at the same time, it's like he still wanted the extra stuff. Like, you need to be home when I'm home. Okay, how am I supposed to make that happen? You need to put food on the table for me. Even though it's cooked, you need to serve me. Dude, like, okay, you can serve yourself. The food is ready, okay? But I've always been a stubborn head, so that did not go very well. that was a clash of cultures, even though we were both African. We were both from West Africa. So that was rough. So I have to admit that my expectation, I didn't think they changed, but apparently they changed. Oh no, no. I'm not. I would do that. If you ask me nicely, just kidding. I'll do that if I feel like it and if time allows it. I love serving my husband, but it comes with the understanding that it's not demanded, it is given, right? But in our cultures, it's like, oh my gosh, your husband can tell you where to go, where not to go. You have to be home before him. You can go out without his permission, like permission, not just letting him know. And those things have changed for me because I'm like, no, I'm not asking you for permission. I'm informing you out of respect, out of honor, because I believe in those things. They're ingrained in me. But it's not like I'm asking you for permission to do anything. So yeah, my expectations have definitely changed. And I'm raising an empowered girl. I'm raising her to be good to the man that she would find one day, to be an asset in all regards, but at the same time not to be a doormat. It's just not gonna work. So
Got it. And to that extent, Mary, you mentioned how maybe in Togo, in your country, women are really, they are submissive. They have to ask permission to do almost everything. So do you believe that there is such things as women's right in Togo?
it's a very complex question, honestly. I see a lot of women taking power in their own hand and deciding to be, there's so much celibacy now because people just not ready to put up with that same old, you need to be submitted to me, you need to ask me permission. You have a lot of broken household now because of that very reason. Now, women rights, are there really women rights? I don't know, but it's not like it's so repressive that you can't do what you wish to do. It just demands a little more courage and boldness than it does in certain countries, like here. Yeah.
So that takes us to the next question, which is, so do you know of March 8th, which is, International Women's Day? Now, is this a holiday in Togo? And how is it celebrated?
It is actually a holiday, my brother's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Journée de la Femme is very much celebrated. People, people take their wife out. You see how Valentine's Day is celebrated here. I guess that's our Valentine's Day, with a woman are taken out, there is parades, there is singing, there is out, just activities like that where, men would treat their wife to a restaurant or would say, you don't have to cook today. I'm doing this and that. Just the traditional way. But, it's nothing too grandiose, Yeah.
I mean, I would say parade is grandiose. I haven't seen a parade yet.
Okay, we like to party, all right.
Good. But now I'm curious to see in Togo, men they are allowed to have more than one wives. So are they taking all of them to the parade too on March 8th?
That's the thing. Like back in the days, they were allowed to have a lot of wives. But nowadays, I don't think no, no.
Oh,
The
things have
law,
changed.
by law, you can still elect that, but not without the consent or the knowledge of your partner. You know what I mean? It used to be that when they go get married, I remember my mother would tell me even in their time, they had to check the marriage certificate, monogamous marriage or uh, polygamous. And you just see the guy that just brought you there checking polygamous, and you're like, what? We didn't talk about this. You know what I mean? But it's not an option anymore, as far as I know. That stuff is still happening though, but it's more of what's the word? Adulterous relationships than it is something that's legally happening, except for, okay, so we have two subcultures in Togo, right? We have the north and the south. In the north, Kabye, Kotokoli, and such, that's still a little bit part of the tradition. Polygamy is still part of the tradition. Now, is it happening with the modern crowd? Absolutely not. It really depends on each partner. It's no longer something that's just legally you can't do this, or legally you can't do that. It's left to every family to decide. Yeah.
Got it. But now let me ask this question, Ms. Terry. So now with women's rights in mind, with Women International Day in mind, what change would you like to see in Togo specifically and globally?
Wow. Am I allowed to dream?
Absolutely. Please dare to dream.
Oh my goodness. I really would like to see more than just a celebration. I would like to see some serious education with our men. Like, your wife is not your child to start with. She's not. Oh, somebody's calling me. Probably have a real estate question for me. I'll call her back. Uh, but yeah, that would be a big one. I have a friend here in the States, and I'm not going to name. I'm going to keep her story private because I haven't asked for permission to share. But she is being abused right now by a man that she brought, her husband. She finally did paperwork and everything, immigration, and he's here. And I received a picture of him biting off one of her fingers not too long ago. Yeah. And for silly arguments. And I'm sad to say that that's not unusual. When I see a Togolese man honoring his woman, and I'm sorry, brothers, if this hurts you, but when I see a Togolese man honoring his wife, listening to her voice, making her feel like her voice matter, I am surprised. Legit surprised. That's just my experience.
Mm-hmm.
What I see more in the community is you see two educated Togolese people married to each other, yet the husband will be very abusive. And the worst of abuse in our communities is oftentimes emotional abuse. We need to shed light on these things. There's the gentleman that used to tell his wife, "You fat, you can't go with me." So there were company events and recognition like that, where you take your spouse or your partner, he will go by himself because supposedly he's embarrassed of his wife. But then in the four walls, she's the one cooking for you. You still, being intimate, like why? That's uncalled for. But that's the stuff that I see in our communities, and you can't talk about it because you can't badmouth your husband. You don't want to bring shame to the family because dirty laundry. You just don't want to talk about it to lose face with your friends, or just don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing. But that stuff is commonplace. And should you be talking to your friends expecting to get some support, it's like, oh, you got to keep it quiet. Men will be men. No, it's not. It's not okay. That's emotional abuse and it needs to stop.
Yeah.
Physical abuse is not okay. It needs to stop. But those things are very, very prevalent. And I'm telling you, professional women, they're not women that you would say are uneducated. They're women that are strong. They're women that are CEOs. They are women that are COOs of company and going home to being battered either in words or physically by their husband. Like, why? I would like that to change. When they're talking about celebrating us as women, that changes on a global spectrum. Like, let's talk about the salary gap, the wage gap. Why? We produce just as much, if not even more. Most of us joke about multitasking. That is so innate in us. We do it. Take care of the family, take care of the children, take care of the company. We do it all. So why is there a wage gap? The FMLA, that we get nowadays, or the leave because you have a baby. That, why is there 3 months, and why is there an option for certain organization not to pay you while you're out? How do you support your family? How do you have financial independence when they do that? How are you not abused or losing stability in your family because you don't have any income to rely on to protect yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I could go on, guys. This really gets me fired up.
No, no, but you're completely right. And even though we live in a country here that has where women experience more freedom, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done because of its fast-paced environment. You know, women are not given the proper time to rest and heal from childbirth. You know, they are, you know, restricted, and in some ways, you know, it's almost frowned upon. What, you're taking your whole 12 weeks off?
I
You know,
know.
like yeah.
I
And
was
then
celebrated
when
for
you
my
look at that
2 weeks.
baby, and that baby is only 3 months old, and it's still so tiny, and you have to leave it behind with a stranger or at a daycare facility, you know, babysitter,
Right.
whatever the case may be, that's not a good feeling as a mom, you know. So
No.
it's still I still think that, you know, separating the mother from the child so early on is a reason, I truly believe is a reason why there are such educational gaps, and, you know, the kids are not developing properly, and, you know, there may be behavioral issues too. I personally see the difference between me being at home with my 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old, versus my other 3 kids, and how much healthier he is, and how more advanced he is, and just his personality, everything he's
Right.
so different from my other kids.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
believe it. I believe it.
So
And you know, that's the stability of a society as well. It's not just limited to making us feel good, or giving us more right as women. It really is the stability of our societies. You
yeah,
know, the next generation, the children. But if we don't have that time to care for them, to prepare them, to equip them. Yeah.
yeah.
What do we have then at that point? So what
And
do we
is
have?
that one day, even, is that like a slap in the face?
I know, like,
You
what the
know,
heck is that?
like one day of a parade, or you're gonna buy me flowers and take me to lunch or whatever, and then the next day you're gonna treat me like shit again. I mean, you know, and I'm not talking about men in general, I'm talking about society, you know. So that's where I'm like, I don't know. I love March 8th because that was a, you know, we didn't have Mother's Day or the Valentine's Day or anything like that. We had only March 8th, and that was a big day for us where I come from. But
Same.
I feel like it
Same.
also has gotten commercialized too. You know, now that it's getting like awareness, because no one ever knew about March 8th when I first moved to the States. They weren't celebrating that.
Right.
So I guess it's good that it's getting awareness, but is it getting good attention, or you know, or bad?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I took over, but I just felt like I wanted to
No,
say
I
that.
love it. I
But the
love it.
very
I
last thing,
love it.
my
This is
very
a
last question,
cafe, right? This is a cafe.
exactly. We're just missing some coffee and drinks.
Yes.
Yeah. So one last question for you, Marie, for this evening before we wrap it up, and it is, what message would you like to give to other women? This is your floor. This is your stage. Take it away.
Man, after all that, sometimes fighting seems to be like the only way we've got to fight to be alive. We've got to fight to protect our children. We've got to fight just to bring home the bacon, right? Just to maintain our standard of living. But I tell you, I've discovered something this year, that resting is a fight. Resting, nurturing ourselves, reconnecting with our being, simply being, not doing is a fight, because it's only when we take care of ourselves that we can properly not only teach others how to treat us, but properly face the challenges that are still ahead of us. Really, that's all I wanted to say.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. I think every woman out there who are watching, who are listening, either here in the US or outside of the US, all the Togolese listening, they got them. And this is why we create this platform to allow women like you to really voice their opinion and to share their perspective, their view on women in general, and see how we are treated differently in different corners of the world. Because sometimes we take, our rights or treatment for granted, thinking that is the same way across the board, but it's not. We've seen this by going through so many countries so far now. So we have this privilege to really experience by listening to you all talking about your own country, your own local, opinion. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. We are so thrilled to have you. We are delighted. Thank you again. And for those of you who are watching, please follow, like, and support BENISA'S CAFE and Unfortunately Femme. We will bring you some more countries. Stay tuned, Benisa. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for this platform.